This week on Cover Band Confidential, I show you the rig I use for my solo acoustic gigs. What's going on, everybody? I'm Adam Johnson, and this is Cover Band Confidential. Last week's walkthrough of my HX Stomp rig was pretty popular, so I figured I would continue talking about how I use the Line 6 HX Stomp in the variety of work that I do. This week specifically, I am talking about solo acoustic gigs. I had one this past weekend, and I put this setup to good use. For those of you who are keeping track, this is the same onstage GPB 2000 pedal board from my last video, but instead of the Shure GLX-D wireless unit I use with my cover band, I have replaced it with the TC Helicon Voice Live Play GTX. For those of you who aren't familiar with this model, TC Helicon released this a few years back, specifically geared towards guitar players as it features amp modeling and effects. Since I only use it for acoustic gigs and I have the HX Stomp on here, I went to their website and downloaded all of their factory presets minus the amp settings. For this particular setup, the HX Stomp does all of that work. The signal flow is that my guitar goes directly into the HX Stomp's input, and then the output from the HX Stomp goes directly into the instrument input of the Voice Live to feed their harmony engine. Basically, the Voice Live is listening to the chords that are being played and then intelligently adjusting the harmonies to match. My microphone of choice is the Shure Super 55-BLK, which is a limited edition all matte black version of their famous Super 55 mic. This model is apparently no longer available, but they do sell the exact same version in chrome and blue. It's just not as, well, black. This mic is plugged directly into the input of the Voice Live, which features dual XLR balanced outputs. And I have the output set to dual mono on the Voice Live so that the guitar signal and the vocal chain are separate outputs that can then go into a mixer or to the back of a powered speaker, depending on my setup. As far as the HX Stomp goes, I've used multiple patches with this kind of configuration, but have ultimately landed on the acoustic patch that Worship Tutorials sells. It should be pretty easy to find as it's the only acoustic patch that they sell. I'll include a link to it as well as the impulse response pack that I'm using in the description. Now let's get all of this set up. All right, so we got everything switched over and patched up. What you are now listening to is the output of the Voice Live directly into Logic Pro with no EQ or compression, just the straight signal. So the signal chain for the HX Stomp preset is an LA Studio comp going into an IR block, then into a parametric EQ that is always running, into a vintage digital delay set to a dotted eighth note that's mapped to one of the foot switches, into a plate reverb that's always on, and then a glitz reverb that is set to this other foot switch. So why would I use an impulse response on an acoustic? For solo gigs, I am using my Taylor T5 Custom, which is an amazing guitar, easily one of the best playing instruments I've ever owned. I could do an entire video on just the switching and pickup configuration on this alone. The only downside is that it's a thin line, so the projection and fullness is kind of limited. Here's what it sounds like unamplified. What the impulse response adds is the soul of a much more robust guitar to kind of fill out the sound. Basically, it takes the sometimes harsh personality of a bridge transducer and kind of smooths it out and gives it a little more nuance. Here is the acoustic signal with the impulse response off. And here's what it sounds like with the impulse response enabled. As I said before, the glitz reverb and the delay are mapped to the foot switches, which allows me to add some atmospherics to the chords that I'm playing or percussive delay. As far as vocal processing goes, I don't use a whole lot. The main preset I use is the Pop Trio Harmony preset, which basically adds a harmony above and below my voice to kind of give it a really full sound. Well, I've been staring on the corner of Windsor, Arizona, such a fine sight to see. As far as looping goes, I don't tend to do it very much. It's just one of those skills that I still need to work on. When I do choose to, I found that the one-button looper on the HX Stomp is kind of finicky and hard to use, so I tend to use the looper that's built into the Voice Live. It also has the added benefit of including my vocal chain so that I I can stack harmonies and things as well as just my guitar signal. And that's basically it. This has been my setup for the past few years, and to be honest, I can't think of anything else I would add to it, and there's still plenty of features that I'm not even using yet. So there you have it. That is my acoustic rig. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. If you haven't already, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. We post new videos here every single Friday. Also, if you didn't know, we have a Patreon, which includes some really cool perks like an exclusive Slack channel, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes conversations and interviews with musicians just like you trying to make their way in the industry. Have an awesome week, and we will see you next time.